Welcome into Basketball by Association. I am the non-echoey one, Arky Shea. That is Joel C. Cordes, who is yet to be determined if he is echoey or not. Joel C. Cordes! NBA's almost here.
Yeah, and this is the start of Season 5 of Basketball by Association Mark II, the second life of the show. Super excited to get started with you. We're going to be talking the Damian Lillard trade. You and I, we intended to take about a month off after the end of last season, the playoffs, everything wrapped up, free agency, and it turned into 2.5 months. Life kind of got there. Congratulations on the second little one added to your tribe, and I had a job change and all this other stuff. So we are here, and it took a blockbuster trade to get us back in the building because that's our dedication.
That is right, Josh Hart, not traded, if that's what you were thinking when you thought blockbuster. That is not the case here, and ironically enough, not James Harden yet either. Okay, so this will be short and simple because we want to get the breaking news pod here, get us ready to start the season, and then we'll start getting into our previews going forward for the East and the West. And make
Before we do that, we got to name the episode. I am going to carry that over into Season 5. I don't know if we'll keep doing it forever, but I think we'll do it for this year.
Well, Joel, then go ahead and name this bad boy.
All right, so this is episode 153. There are two players in NBA history who have logged 153 career playoff games. Both come from the same team, primarily. One of them is AC Green, which is quite an accomplishment when you think about it. AC Green, a role player, though he did start at power forward occasionally for the Lakers, primarily for the Suns a little bit. He's 43rd on the list of all-time playoff games. But the guy he shares the list with, we can't pass him up. He's a Hall of Famer, a 14-time All-Star. He was a 12-time All-NBA player. He was the 68-69 Finals MVP. He's on the 75th anniversary team, the 1969-1970 scoring champ, won a championship in 1972, a 5-time All-Defensive player. He was the All-Star MVP in 71-72. I don't know if you want to take a guess based off that, but I got a couple more clues if that doesn't do it for you.
All right, hold on. Let me think. Late 60s. You say 68, 69? You say NBA
Finals MVP.
Finals MVP.
Finals MVP, okay. But he won the championship in 72, so he got the MVP without winning the finals.
How many time All-Star?
14-time All-Star, 12-time All-NBA. The assist champion in 71-72.
Oh, I'm not going to know that at all. I'm not going to know the assist champion for 71-72. I'm just trying to think of the NBA Finals is in the late 60s and early 70s. I mean, that's a lot of Lakers. That's a lot of
well, the clue was same team as AC Green.
Okay. All right. Okay, so let me do some quick math. 68, 69. Do we discuss him often in reference to a potential change in NBA branding?
Yes, we do. That was going to be
the logo?
It's the logo, yeah. It's the Jerry West episode. I was going to run down his list of less known nicknames, which include Tweety, Tweety Bird, Cabin Creek Comet.
Never heard Tweety.
Zeke from Cabin Creek, that one's famous. Mr. Zeke, Clutch, yeah. That one's sort of famous, but it's been passed on to a few different people. And then the logo, that would have given it away.
Yeah, so 68, 69, that's, I mean, not specifically no one, but like I would have to have assumed it was either the Lakers or the Celtics at that point.
He gets the finals MVP in the loss in the finals, which is another very big oddity there. That was against the Celtics. But he would come back to win in 72.
So they lost that series.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have all the years memorized as far as who won the championship, but hey, not often that the losing team gets the MVP, so that's pretty neat. I don't know what any of his stats were. He had to do pretty good.
They were pretty phenomenal. I think he averaged well over 40 points a game in that finals.
We've never had a Jerry West episode?
Not that I know of. I went back and looked to see if we did it during episode 44 back in the day, and I think we chose somebody else.
Who could have possibly been the 44?
There's a ton of people that have worn 44. It was
that we would have chosen over Jerry West.
Well, we tried to go obscure in some of these, so I don't think we actually went with Jerry, but maybe we did. Who knows? He's the logo. He gets to. Let's talk Dame.
Well, he's the logo He's the logo until we change it to Kobe, of course. That's just
right. Or Kyrie Irving, who's more than well deserving for it.
We're 5 minutes into a new year. What are you doing?
A new season. I just had to bring him back because I know your affinity and your love for talking all things Kyrie, who never stays out of the media cycle.
Could we have gone one season opener for a Dallas team that's not going to be good, to not have to talk about that guy?
The answer is no.
Okay, good. All right, well, here's the blockbuster trade discussion. After months and months and months of waiting and offers being fielded left and right, the Portland Trailblazers are no longer the home franchise of Dame time. Damian Lillard is moving on to, of course, as we predicted from the beginning, the Milwaukee Bucks. And that's all because Mike Budenholzer left, and that is really the problem, right? That's the problem, is that Mike Budenholzer was there before. That's why Dame wouldn't come before. Now it's clear that the Trailblazers have gotten their money's worth to send them to the great upper Midwest there. So, we're going to talk about what's going to be the trade back value in just a second. But first, when you saw the news of Brizzy break, I guess as we're recording this on a Thursday, on Wednesday, was it Wednesday?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, it was Wednesday. Man, my weeks, I have a 3-week-old now, and my days are just zipping right into each other. When you first saw the news, in fact, you broke the news to me that Damian Lillard got traded when you texted me. When you saw the news went down, what were your initial thoughts that it was A, finally happening, and B, not to the Miami Heat?
I thought, good on you, Milwaukee. I really just almost had a fist pump for them. They need this kind of deal. You have Giannis talking about the fact that, we've won a championship. We've been a contender. Last year, we were first place. We lose in the first round. The bad feelings from that, and also the message to new ownership to say, you can't back off. This is not about just selling tickets. You guys will sell out as long as I'm here. I will only be here if we have a true contender. And this type of move, not only the coaching change, but then this type of move to go out and get Damian Lillard, who was the preeminent target both in free agency and the trade market, to be able to nab him, especially when they were not considered a front runner. You saw in recent days that the Toronto Raptors were being rumored that they were going to maybe try to take a Kawhi Leonard 2.0 swing at getting Damian for a year, maybe a couple years, because he's under contract for 3. See how that went. I do think that the Heat traction had lost for a while because they hadn't gotten the deal done up to this point. They were not going to suddenly come up with new trade assets and then Portland would go, oh, yeah, you know what? 35 cents on the dollar sounds amazing. Let's do that. Because it used to be 34 cents on the dollar. I don't think it was going to happen. And Jimmy Butler being butthurt about it, Tyler Hero being butthurt and going, well, you guys need to look into collusion, tampering, whatever. Guys, we've been in the open period now for months. And your team couldn't get it done. You don't have the assets to make this happen because you've gone all in so many other times that you don't have enough chips to get Damian Lillard. Milwaukee, surprisingly, was able to get this done. They were not the first pick that I thought would be able to do this, but they were up there. We had talked about Milwaukee, and I think when the Damian Lillard trade demand first came up, they were a team that I had mentioned.
Let me say this, and then we'll talk about what the actual trade looks like. Most of you listen to this probably already know the details, but we'll get our thoughts on it as well because you guys love this pod so much. So when the discussion began about Damian Lillard wanting out, and I guess officially after tiptoeing for 3 years to want out for the franchise, now is officially seeking his way out, and that his preferred destination was basically to go to Miami. And then there was a report that if anybody else came after him, they were going to call him, quote, a distressed asset. He wasn't going to be willing to show up and blah, blah, blah. That you sort of thought in this day of player empowerment, right, that essentially the players are calling the shots. Despite the fact that the front office do, for the most part, it seems like if a player wants to leave, the team finds a way to make him leave. And if a player has
if their
preferred
stature is
destinations,
high enough,
sure.
high enough, yes.
Yeah, like this, Grayson Allen wasn't choosing his spot to be able to be traded for this. But if your stature's high enough and you wanted to go specific places, the team was basically hamstrung, and like you said, could find themselves having to give 35 cents on a dollar just because, well, how else is the deal going to get made? Rather get something rather than nothing for someone who doesn't want to play for you. Then you see this come down to where Miami's trade offers were essentially the same since the beginning of the summer. Like it just really hadn't changed very much at all. Maybe
Hero,
adjusted a couple of draft picks or swaps. Exactly.
So Tyler Hero a pick, and then maybe one or two of their young guys who are not top line prospects.
Right. And they didn't want to give up what I saw with both of them. I think they had two young guys they really didn't want to give up, so they give up one of them, and So to see that Portland said, "Look, we're in a rebuild here, we're in a retool area here. We want to be able to get as much as possible. We're not going to let Damian Lillard sort of set the market for us." To be able to get that done is a really cool thing to sort of see a team gain back a little bit of control of what has basically become the players' league, and everybody else is just here to be a part of it, which is fine to a degree. But the team is basically been held hostage by players for a while for what they want to do if they're high enough stature. To be able to get this back is, I think, a really good thing for the league momentarily. It's not going to always be that way, I'm sure, but for a good thing, I thought it was nice to see a change up in this way. And to piggyback on your point, and then we'll get into the details. Good for Milwaukee, right? Milwaukee's that team that generally has to draft or maybe trade for players. Like, they're not a big free agent destination, traditionally speaking. It's a little better now with Giannis and company there. But basically, Giannis has sort of hinted at, look, I want to be here. I want to win. I just, maybe, help me out here a little bit. And Milwaukee said, yeah, you need some help for the next couple of seasons, so let's do it. And they found a way to bring in a top-line player to sort of help them. We'll talk much later down the road as far as whether or not it's going to make them sort of be able to get past if Giannis is not there, the foibles that they may have. But I want to jump in. I think that was it's a great spot for Milwaukee to come in and sort of shake up the nest a little.
Yeah, I just want to. You brought up an interesting point that got the wheels turning while I was listening to you about how Portland didn't allow themselves to be held hostage. But I do think there's a nuance here that makes it different than a Kyrie Irving or a James Harden situation, players who have held teams hostages recently. And I'm not trying to bring Kyrie back into it, but there are other star players too that have had trade demands and the team had to move on. In those cases, those teams were typically on a contender or at least a playoff contender. And so when you have somebody threatening to hold out and you don't have the ability to get value back through that holdout, then you have to move and do something in order to keep that contender status, because there's too many dominoes that then fall if you come back holding nothing. Portland, as you said, in a rebuild, they're not hurt if Damian Lillard holds out. Right. They can wait that out. They actually don't want him on the court. They want Scoot Henderson and Anthony Simons and Shadon Sharp to get their reps and move on that way, or Shadon Sharp, excuse me. So it was a little bit of a different situation where they could be patient. The other nuance with teams kind of seeming to bend over for certain stars and make sure that they move them on is not just about keeping the star happy. Yes, the players talk. And so if you get a bad rep among star players, that can have a domino effect for you later, residual effect of difficulty getting stars. But if you piss their agents off, there are only so many agents in the NBA, and while they compete against each other, they also do talk, and especially when you have a star player, chances are pretty good that they are represented by an agent who represents numerous other players, including really good ones and mid-tier ones that you want and younger players that you want too. So if you tick that agent off by, again, not playing ball with them, that can have residual effects that are negative. So oftentimes I think it's looked at as a better investment to keep people happy. And it's not just about kowtowing to the players. There's more to it than just that. So I just wanted to add those nuances to it.
No, I think it's fair. And if we want to spend the entire show on a nuanced conversation about this, we could. I mean, there's a lot to be able to be brought up with that. But I do appreciate what you said there, because it is basically Portland shrugging the shoulders and saying we don't have to really do anything, right? Like we're rebuilding with or without this guy. Like whether we get assets for him or great ones or not, we just know what we got. We've got a valuable asset, and if somebody wants to give us pennies on the dollar, we just say no. He can still sell tickets to our arena to get people to show up.
And they're not a big free agent destination anyway.
Exactly.
So if you piss
this is
off
how they're going to have
agent,
to do it. Exactly. They need trade capital. They need draft picks. That's how you build in places like Portland, how Milwaukee's built to what they've done for the most part as well. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the actual deets. This was a 3-team deal to be able to get this done. Portland gets Drew Holiday, DeAndre Ayton, and Toumani Camara. Is I got that right? Toumani, is that right? Do I have it pronounced right, Mr. Joel Cordes?
Let me refresh here. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
He also gets Milwaukee's 2029 unprotected first-round pick, which will probably be number 1, right? Probably number 1 or much lower.
much lower, but they're taking a calculated risk.
Yeah,
they're taking a bet that Giannis is gone by then, and that's why they wanted that pick.
Yeah, that's a good point. And unprotected Milwaukee swap rights in 2028 and 2030. Now that's the Portland side, I should say. The Suns are getting Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen. That's right, that Grayson Allen. He is still hanging around in the league. Nasir Little and Keon Johnson as part of that trade package as well. And I'll tell you, man, I think people are getting really low on DeAndre Ayton. I mean, it doesn't help how he looked against Denver in that series. He got blowed up in that series and exposed in a major way. But Joel, let's just now unpack this a little bit before we get out, because I think it makes sense that we look at who got what. And this isn't necessarily, I don't even think it, and I think it's pretty much confirmed, this isn't the end of all the movement that'll be happening from these players. But let's go ahead and talk about the assets there. Damian Lillard's the big name. But also the not so small name behind it is Drew Holiday, who is going to be exiting what has basically been, a championship contender he's helped build.
Yeah, let's talk about it from the Milwaukee side first. Damian Lillard arriving is a godsend on one side of the ball. Offensively, the Milwaukee Bucks have run into problems in the past in crunch time where defenses load up on Giannis, who is not an amazing outside shooter, yet he is a respectable jump shooter. He is a streaky free throw shooter, although he's put some of those issues to rest. By adding Damian Lillard, Giannis now gets to play essentially the Kevin Garnett role from those 2007 Boston Celtics, where it was Paul Pierce and Ray Allen, because the Bucks still have Chris Middleton, who has kind of been the clutch scorer for them the last few years during their success. The issue with Chris Middleton is, though, he's been hurt a few times. He is a guy who can get his own shot, but he's even better as a catch and shoot guy or a 1 or 2 dribble guy. A setup is appreciated by Chris Middleton. And Damian Lillard now comes in as the guy who can and does create at an elite level off his own dribble, creates for others, understands clutch situations, has been in those before. You have Chris Middleton as the outlet valve. You have Giannis as the dirty work guy offensively, the cleanup guy, the guy when the defense forgets. It's strange that a 2-time MVP suddenly becomes the afterthought in clutch time. Yeah. But that's what he's going to play. He's going to anchor the defense. He's going to fill in the stats for 3.5 quarters of games, and we know he's going to get a ton of them. And he's going to run a fantastic pick and roll with Damian Lillard. I think this is going to be great. Chris Middleton is going to get easier shots than ever before. It is no disrespect to what Drew Holiday brought, because offensively, Drew Holiday is a guy that on a good night is 25 to 30 points. When he's really clicking, that's about his ceiling. Typically, it's going to be 20 or less. Damian Lillard, on a good night that he's clicking, is between 40 to 60 points offensively. And that's with the defense teeing up on him in Portland, where he did have some weapons, but he's going to have better ones in Milwaukee. You still have Brook Lopez. You still have Bobby Portis. You have Malik Beasley, who's going to fill in for Grayson Allen. So offensively, the Bucks take this huge step forward. Everybody slots in. The question becomes defensively, where you do lose an all-defensive candidate in Drew Holiday for a guy in Damian Lillard who competes on that end, but is average at best. Grayson Allen was a decent team defender, but incredibly streaky from three. Malik Beasley is going to fill that role, I think, in both ways for better and worse. He's going to compete on that end. He's going to knock down open threes when he's hot. Pat Connaughton has to stay healthy and give them good defense. They're really looking at Marshawn Beauchamp, I think, to step in and play big minutes, but they might have to find one other wing defender because they just don't have an elite guy right now at that position. And unless you're saying Giannis is going to go back to guarding a lot of wings, and we're going to trust our front line of Brook Lopez, who was, a defensive player, the Canada of the Year guy, and I think got it. It's been that long now. Bobby Portis competes on that end, so they've got the weapons. It's a great move for Milwaukee, and I think even more than what it does on the court, it's what it signals. And with the coaching change and hopefully the adaptability and hopefully a fire lit under them, Milwaukee is right back to being on top in the East and contending for a championship. That's where the bar is set.
So let's talk about the next sort of piece of this, which is Drew Holiday, and where he may be put. The reports are out there that Portland was like, great, we got Drew Holiday. Let's find a contender that wants to give us a bunch of stuff for him. So Drew Holiday could be up for really any number of contenders. I've read the Heat be interested in him. I've read that Boston would be interested in him. Toronto might be interested in him, amongst other teams that are out there. Joe, where do you think Drew ends up being by the time this is over?
This is the beauty of Drew Holiday, and it's the dichotomy between him and a guy like James Harden. They're both early 30s. Damian Lillard is 33 as well. Harden's 34. I have to look up on Drew his age. But, and let me see if I can find that real quick. Do I have that in front of me? No, they've switched it already. But the difference is Drew Holiday has been a
Drew
good
Holiday's
guy.
33.
Okay, he's been a good guy wherever he's gone. He's been a leader, a locker room guy. He's continuously getting the sportsmanship award. He can fit in on a young team, and you are fine with him as a mentor who's able to keep it all together, even if his minutes are up and down. He could work in Portland. He would be a great teacher for those guys, even if it's just for half a season. And you could see the Blazers do this, where they keep him around just to help Scoot Henderson learn the ropes a little bit, get a little bit of mentoring for Anthony Simons and Shadon Sharp, and then you move him at the deadline when contenders really get desperate. He could fit there. He could fit somewhere like Orlando or some of these other younger teams that could use the help. But all defensive guy who has been fine slotting in as the second wheel. I think he's better suited as the third, maybe even the fourth. You mentioned it. Boston is a great fit. Toronto could be a great fit. Teams that really need an upgrade. Miami, swing and a miss on Dame Lillard, and yet Drew Holiday would, I think, slot into their ethos very, very well. He's a fantastic consolation prize if you can get him. But teams like Minnesota could use an upgraded point guard. Mike Conley is fine, but Drew Holiday is that much better and 3-4 years younger. It would be a coup at a place like that. The Clippers could be looking. They should be looking. I know they like Russell Westbrook, but you have to kick the tires on this. I had a couple of other ones here as well. Washington is probably not far along enough in their rebuild. Brooklyn has already committed to Ben Simmons, but somebody like Philadelphia, Drew Holiday originated as a Sixer.
Philadelphia could make sense to come back, yeah.
Bring him back. Boston makes a ton of sense.
I think the tough part about Boston is sort of figuring out the math on contracts and stuff, because Boston's kind of up against it a little bit. So, but as far as a roster is concerned, I think it would make a lot of sense. Yeah, because you're talking about a team in Boston that's got a bunch of great proven. I shouldn't say young anymore.
They're not anymore.
These guys are like they've been deep into the finals, to the NBA finals, Eastern Conference.
They're mid-career contenders with a ton of good defenders, and you just moved Marcus Smart, so you could use another one.
right? I mean, they've made moves. He brought in Porzingis, of course, this year, and you have the ability to be able now to do something with a potential Drew Holiday. But I don't know who you would have to move to be able to make that make sense. So that might be an interesting exercise. Okay, so let me first ask this, and then we'll move on to the Suns aspect of this too. You brought up the idea that he may stay in Portland. Not the worst idea in the world for the first part of the season. Someone figures out they're a contender. They didn't expect that they're a contender, or that they piece short that they feel like that they want to get back.
Somebody gets hurt, and you have to stay as a contender. Yeah,
there's an injury. Do you think Drew Holiday is a Portland Trailblazer to start the season?
I think it's a 50-50 shot. I think
50-50, okay.
Yeah, because there's going to be teams that make inquiries. The Lakers are going to make an inquiry on him. You can bet that they will. I think they honestly probably get a call from half the league. Half the league is going to call up and inquire about Drew Holiday. Phoenix, who probably couldn't have gotten him in a 3-team deal, but he could fit in Phoenix as a point guard. They don't have a true point guard. I don't think they have the assets to get Drew Holiday at this point. But here's one team, and I should have mentioned them before. One team that should be burning the phone lines down trying to get Drew Holiday. The Chicago Bulls have been smoke and mirrorsing their point guard situation since Lonzo Ball went down.
Okay.
Do they have the young assets? Maybe, maybe not. But they typically hold on to a lot of their draft picks. Drew Holiday gives them a different trajectory when you put him as the point guard next to Zach LaVine and a top-tier defender alongside the other weapons that they have. They're conceivably keeping their starting group together at least. They should be moving heaven and earth to try to get Drew Holiday. I really think somebody like Minnesota, who's got a lot riding on this season, they should be doing that too. Most of the other teams outside of Philadelphia, if the deal is right, bring in a Drew Holiday. But for those three, Chicago, Philly, Minnesota, you really got to be pushing hard. This is a guy who could be a big needle mover for what you currently have.
You know what? That I had not even thought about the possibility of throwing out Chicago in this, but it makes a lot of sense. It would make a lot of sense.
For Portland, I love bringing in DeAndre Ayton. Yusuf Nurkic is another mid-career guy. You know exactly what you have from him. He's not a needle mover on this type of team. DeAndre Ayton should have been able to fit in Phoenix on that loaded roster, but he doesn't fit because we've seen him disappear over and over and over again when he is not a featured part of the offense. If he's not getting designed touches, then he stops doing the little things, and you have to really stay on him to occasionally have that good game where it's like, oh, DeAndre Ayton did all the little stuff. It was an aberration. He does not belong, unfortunately, maturity-wise, on a win-now contender where he's being asked to be the fourth wheel as a former number one pick. But to go to Portland, where it's Scoot Henderson and it's Jeremy Grant and it's maybe Anthony Simons, because he could be moved too in all of this. And it's a true rebuild to get a number one pick, a former number one in DeAndre Ayton, to bring him in and to go, you're going to get as many touches as you can handle. And we're really going to explore what your ceiling is. And this could wind up being your team, or at least a co-team with one of these other young guys. It's a great situation for DeAndre Ayton. It's a great pickup for the Blazers, especially, some people are going to look at the return and go, man, they didn't really get much for Damian Lillard. That's going to change when they get the return on Drew Holiday. But to get Ayton and to move off Nurkic's contract, it actually is a really nice deal for them and makes a ton of sense.
Okay. Well, you know what? Look at you, Joel, starting to make me think of places that Drew could go. When you said half the league, I was a little like, but the more you think about it, the more someone like that, especially at the beginning of the season, fits in more and more locker rooms and more situations, before we even show up to camp and such. So it's, I don't hate this at all.
I looked down the list real quick, and Cleveland won't do it. New York is set. Atlanta probably won't do it because that would mean Drew is playing shooting guard, which he has done before, but that's not ideal. You have DeJounte Murray there already. Indiana's not going to do it with Tyrese Halliburton. Charlotte's not going to do it with LaMelo Ball. Detroit's not there yet. Denver's not going to do it. Memphis won't do it as they wait for Ja. Sacramento's got De'Aaron Fox. Golden State is set. Oklahoma City, probably set in their backcourt. They're not going to bring in Drew Holiday. New Orleans, we didn't mention them. They could do it. Dallas is already committed to Kyrie, but they would love to uncommit. Utah could do it. I would take Drew Holiday any day, and it's no disrespect to Colin Sexton, but I still would take Drew Holiday. Houston's not going to do it. They're set with Red Van Vliet. San Antonio's not going to do it because of where they are in the rebuild. But literally, we did name just about half the league that is on the possible list.
All right, let's talk about the Suns side of this, and then we'll get a brief James Harden thing before we get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Yusuf Nurkic. There's always a handful.
We're rusty. We're rusty. 2.5 months off, and we're rusty.
Grayson Allen, Nasir Little, and Keon Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
That's who comes back to the Suns. I should mention in this 3-team trade. Talk to me. What do you think about the Suns moving on from DeAndre Ayton, and what do you think of what they've gotten back, and do you foresee them still being movers and shakers with what they got right now?
They were an incredibly top-heavy roster after the Bradley Beal trade, and even after bringing Kevin Durant in last year. And DeAndre Ayton did not help that because he plays very top-heavy. He's got to be getting star touches, like I said, to remain engaged. He's not a gap filler, and you probably shouldn't be asking or expecting a number 1 former pick, to be doing that anyway. You should be getting return on value if you're turning a number 1 pick into a 4th wheel, because that's where your team is. Now you look at the Phoenix Suns. So much better balance. Yusuf Nurkic has had trouble staying healthy, but that was big minutes in Portland. He's not going to play such big minutes in Phoenix. Grayson Allen, another shooter to the already embarrassment of riches. You're talking Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant, 3 of the best shooters in the league. But you also have Damian Lee, Eric Gordon, one of the better shooters in the league, Yuta Watanabe. Josh Okogie got a lot better once defenses stopped paying attention to him and was able to knock down some shots. Ball is a guy who can knock down a 3 a little bit. Keita Bates-Diop can knock it down. Sabin Lee, Nasir Little coming in. All of those guys can hit some 3s. Yusuf Nurkic has not been afraid to occasionally tee one up from outside. Drew Eubanks is the same way. It's the new modern NBA, but they are loaded with shooters. They're now all of a sudden 10, 11, maybe even 12 deep on a team that was incredibly top heavy to start with. The only major questions that I have for them is if Yusuf Nurkic, who has had some catastrophic injuries in the past, suddenly goes down and is missing 50 games this year, and you're starting Drew Eubanks and Chimezie Metu, and all of a sudden Ball is playing minutes. Are you comfortable with that if you're Phoenix? Probably not. You're probably getting another veteran body out there, even if it is like somebody, Dwight Howard, who people are kicking the tires on right now. You're bringing a body in. And then there is this experiment that's going to go down with Devin Booker playing point guard. Brad Beal's going to handle some of those duties. Grayson Allen now moves into some of that. Eric Gordon played some point guard at various stops, not for a full-time position, but had to do it in various places. So it's going to be by committee. There is no true point guard on this team. Will that be an issue? I don't think that one will be, but it's going to be one of the things that if they get off to a slow start or chemistry is a little weird with so many new pieces, that's going to be one of the easy, low-hanging fruit things for the talking heads like Kendrick Perkins and Stephen A. Smith and those guys to latch on to, even though it may be a non-starter.
Yeah, and Arky Shea. Yeah, I'll latch on to that too. Yeah. Listen, I'm not here for smart NBA talk. I'm here for the fun stuff. It does not involve certain Dallas members.
Did Phoenix get dollar for dollar value on a former number 1 pick with DeAndre Ayton? No, but they did not need to because they've already come out ahead in the Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal trades. So they just needed to round out the roster, and sometimes 75 cents on the dollar does make sense, and that I feel is what they got out of this.
Yeah, they got a pretty good haul, I would say, for the most part. They're okay, but their roster right now as it is okay. So that's the thing. Like, you don't necessarily, need to do what Portland did, right? You don't need to hold out and squeeze every drop of water out of that sponge. But what you could do is what you do now. And so, listen, me, I'm a big DeAndre Ayton guy. I think he can be really good in this league. He has shown more than just the flashes of it. But it did seem to me once the trade was made for Kevin Durant that it didn't really feel like a spot was left for him long term on this roster, and it didn't feel like that Phoenix Suns team was as good as it could be with him on that. And there's just a lot of oxygen is taken out of the room when a Kevin Durant like that comes in. There's also a lot of oxygen comes out of the room further when you make the offseason moves you've already made, including, as you said, Beal and company. So let me ask you this.
We've seen teams struggle so badly when they've tried to fit 4 big pieces together. A big 4 absolutely does not work. A big 3 seems to be the sweet spot, and a big 2 if you have to, but then you better have a good supporting cast. Nurkic is a better passer. He is a guy who will get you low block points. That's primarily where he's going to score from, but he can finish out of the pick and roll. He can play high post, and he's been a gap filler basically throughout his career. A main piece, yes, but a gap-filling main piece who's not superlative in any one area, but doesn't have really the ego about that. And coming in from the European system where a lot of times you don't star, no matter how good you are a part of the starting lineup and the cohesive unit, and that's how you'll star. I just think that, Nurkic fits so much better.
We'll go move on to James Harden, but first you got to give me, and I want no explanation on this, all right? Gold, silver, bronze, this 3-team trade. Gold Phoenix, gold Portland, gold Milwaukee, silver. Give me which team got gold, which team got silver, which team got bronze. No explanation.
So I can't hand out 3 golds because that's what I would do. I would literally hand out 3 golds for this trade. I think it made sense for everybody.
All right, that's cool. That's not what you can do, though. So who got the goldest of the gold?
That's what I can't do. Milwaukee gold, Phoenix silver, Portland bronze.
You heard it here first. Chelsea Cordes says Portland got a terrible deal with this Damian Lillard trade, and they should be firing most people inside the front office. I disagree, Joel, but it's a hot take, and I appreciate it.
How would you award the medals?
I say it's Milwaukee gold, but I would say Portland silver, and I would say Phoenix is probably bronze. Okay. I mean, I don't think it's all 3 golds. I think all 3 teams got themselves an opportunity to do what they wanted to do for the most part, but I think Milwaukee made themselves so much better. I think Portland got what they needed to get out of Damian Lillard, which was some high-level prospects and some high-level opportunities, including whatever they may get from Drew Holiday, and they'll continue to reap those rewards, hopefully. And Phoenix just they cleaned up the roster a little. They cleaned up what they wanted to be able to do. So, but yeah, it's varying degrees. I'm with you. Okay, so talk to me about James Harden. Is that guy still playing basketball? I feel like the last time we spoke about him, he said he would never play for someone who happens to be a very important member of the Philadelphia 76ers. So you tell me, Mr. Joel C. Cordes. He's got to be looking at this Damian Lillard trade saying, it's kind of what I want. Like, I'm interested in being put out there, you know. So let's get to moving, Daryl Morey.
Oh, James Harden, we've been warning you for the last couple of years here that you were entering the Carmelo Anthony and Allen Iverson stage of your career where your ego was cashing checks that your game and especially your attitude and reputation were not going to be able to get anymore. And that's where we're at. The phones have been dead. Philly tried to, reportedly talk to the Clippers, and reportedly it was the Clippers who backed away. The Clippers are probably the only team out there that made any sense because they've kind of taken on their identity of reclamation projects, of veterans. They're an old team at this point. They're star-studded in a way, but they're just kind of willing to roll the dice and see what happens. And you can respect that. There's always a team or two out there who does that until the wheels fall off. And the Clippers, it's going to fall off at some point, but maybe we finally get a magical season where Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are healthy. You look up and down the rest of this group, and James Harden has demanded a trade 4 times now.
Is that all?
Every single one of those were contending teams who built around James Harden or at least featured him, the Oklahoma City Thunder, in a big way. Everybody else moved heaven and earth to get him. The returns were not what they had hoped for, and then the marriage soured, and recently the marriages keep souring quicker and quicker, And I will say that James Harden played good basketball on the court for the most part in Philadelphia. He was unselfish. He fit, but playoff time came around. And once again, James Harden in a big game disappears and then wants to disappear off the roster. So it's not just the bad attitude. It's the massive contract. It's that he's 34. It's the unwillingness to ever take any culpability for any of these situations, which has been a major red flag for a long time. But his age back then and his talent level that he was an MVP caliber guy made it okay. But you add the clutch issues into it. This is a damaged asset who Philadelphia is hamstrung with. They took a gamble from Daryl Morey. You understood it at the time. A lot of us had, major reservations about it, which everybody understood too. And I cannot think of a single roster around the league where James Harden makes sense based on those true facts at this moment.
So I did some digging, to try to figure out what may make some sense. Remember, we talked about the Clippers. Mm-hmm. The Clippers are one that were sniffing around trying to figure something out. We know Portland's interesting offshooting of Mr. Drew Holiday, right? Now, this is a little. I kind of had an idea like this, but I did not know the details of maybe how it could work until I found this one potential scenario. This I found from Clutch Points. All right, you want to hear this?
Okay.
All right.
Let's do it.
This is one that actually, to me, if you're gonna do it, it's really difficult to do it, right? But it could make some sense and make a lot of people happy. Here we go. This is a 3-team deal featuring the Sixers, the Clippers, and the Trailblazers.
Mm-hmm.
In this, the Sixers will get Drew Holiday and Robert Covington. All right?
Okay.
The Clippers will get James Harden, PJ Tucker.
Okay.
The Trailblazers will get Marcus Morris Sr., Nick Batum, and a few picks. We're talking like 1 first round and a couple second round picks, all from the Clippers.
I think that's one of the best possible deals the Sixers could hope to get at this point, and especially because both Covington and Holiday are good locker room guys. They're both former Sixers. Yeah. They were part of the process. Covington was a well-liked teammate from Joel Embiid. You maybe buy yourself a couple more years before Embiid gets pissed about this.
I think that team needs a little bit of cleaning up culturally, like for some of the bad eggs that are
in
there.
But man, does that look bad. Does that look bad, though, Arky Shea, when you had the entire process only to wind up with the same guys who started the process.
Yeah.
But they're 10 years older.
Yeah. I mean,
it's bad optics.
But I know the Philadelphia fans don't care about this part, but you tried. You try bringing in big-time names, right? You try bringing in big contracts.
You have a couple failed lottery picks in Ben Simmons, Markelle Fultz, and Nerlens Noel.
You did the whole process. You spent a decade trying to get up all these draft picks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now when you've got a window that is getting smaller every single day, that maybe if you're trying to get rid of James Harden to get something good back, for you it literally is getting Drew Holiday, who is a great locker room guy, as you talked about a bunch, and is a guy who can fill a need immediately. Like, it's not just some dude you put at the end of the bench. Robert Covington, not a bad guy to have on your team, not a bad player. And you get rid of the headache. It helps Portland. Portland gets, a whole bunch of stuff, which is what they wanted, right?
It's not great stuff, though.
No,
I
but
mean,
they get
pick here or there, they'll take it. But
we're taking a 2028 first-round pick from the Clippers. I don't know what the Clippers are going to be in 5 years,
That's
right?
True.
So
that is true.
I have no idea. Kawhi may not have any more legs. I don't know. I haven't seen him in forever. So I don't know what he and Paul George and all are going to end up being in 5 years. But it may not be a great one. And you got two, possible 2024 second-round selections. And what's kind of turned into a weird thing with the NBA, which is, for some reason, the top of the second round has looked better than the bottom of the first round over the last handful of years of the draft. So now the only one I'm not so sure about is if the Clippers are going to be any better off. I mean, they've wanted James Harden and they're interested in sort of picking up their own big three, but I mean, again, who knows? I mean, James Harden is just a wild card that, as good as a player as he's been, As much as he's
and
kind
if
of
you're
selfish, kind of not,
Mhm.
mentally he's got to be 1,000% in, or he's not going to be the same guy.
And if you're Philadelphia, you want Tyrese Maxey as your starting point guard. You bring in Drew
Yes,
Holiday, and he's going to move to shooting guard, which again he has
that's a
done
good point.
before in New Orleans, but it was not his preferred position, nor was he at optimal efficiency when he played shooting guard. So that also takes a little bit of the luster off of it, but I still think the Clippers are the only team that would take a swing at James Harden at this point, and this would be probably one of the only deals, as you said, that Philadelphia gets back something that is usable, that's tangible, that where they're not paying out the nose just to get rid of James Harden. Maybe somebody like the Lakers tries to move because they've been big and they bet that LeBron James is going to be able to keep somebody like this in line. Maybe, and every once in a while that does work. Every once in a while it does. But we're looking at a future here where James Harden is not a member of the NBA next season, because he's sitting and holding out, and he's really not a member the following season. And then we'll get a comeback, bench player James Harden at 37, 38 when he humbles up a little bit and realizes that the phones have been dead for a while. Same thing happened to Carmelo.
I tell you what I feel bad about is that we're looking at an all-time great player statistically, right? With James Harden, and by the way, he's doing it in the era where you're having to put up stats to be considered anything like that. And the thing that everyone knows him for, and for good reason, is how much of a nuisance he is to his teams that he plays for.
He's Adrian Dantley. He's the modern Adrian Dantley, and that Adrian wouldn't be happy to hear that, but just Adrian was prickly and didn't get along with a lot of people. He kept to himself. He put up massive numbers. They did not always translate into wins, but sometimes they did. But no ring, not a clutch guy. James Harden is kind of looking at that same thing, and maybe even with Iverson too, where you go, and Iverson I think gets the respect of being a cultural luminary, a game luminary. James Harden played in a way that a lot of people didn't like watching. It was ugly, and he was an unlikable player.
Yeah, and it's hard to be that if you're a scorer, right? Like it's hard to be so unlikable if like as a fan of the league. To say as often as you want, you can people didn't hate Carmelo as a player, and he was sort of that ish to a degree. Like he was a more selfish player. He was into the scoring, but his teams were never great. I think it was one seed once with Denver, but for the most part, they weren't great teams. They didn't go far in the playoffs. They barely got anywhere into the playoffs as far as like winning games in the playoffs, besides getting out of the rounds or the first round. So. But James Harden is just entirely. We may be the only two people that defend him, like as far as how good of a basketball player he is. We're about the only two
and he
left
keeps
on his
making it
side.
harder and harder on us.
And we don't have a team to trade for him. Like we might be the ones convinced to bring James Harden in, but the fewer friends you make out there, the fewer opportunities you got to go get that elusive ring, if that's what you want. And who knows if that's what he even wants?
I don't know what he wants anymore either. You're a featured guy, and you believe that at 34 you deserve a max deal, a full max extension. No other contender is going to believe that. No other rebuilding or middling team is going to let you anywhere near their young guys, or believe that you're a needle mover that's worth it to clear the coffers to bring you in. You have not been a difference maker in a while, and you were respectable in Philadelphia, and that was it.
Yeah, exactly. Respectable. Here's the thing, and we'll get out on this. What's he mad about? He's mad that like he was told that like if he opted in, they'd find that Daryl Morey would find a trading spot for him, and Daryl Morey hasn't been able to find a trading spot for him.
He's mad that he wanted the extension and didn't get the extension.
Well, I don't know if he wanted the extension.
Right.
I think he likes now at this point starting to do what LeBron's been doing, which is these 1 and 2 year things, opt-in kind of things, as opposed to sort of, getting that quote unquote guaranteed money that's on the end. And I don't know, man. James Harden is just an enigma wrapped in a quandary, and I'm not sure if he's supposed to be figured out. But
Can you imagine James Harden on the Miami Heat? Like,
now, if you want to talk about, that like Sling TV used to have, where like you could just buy the individual team games on the
yeah,
Sling TV. I don't even think it was the NBA Pass or something. Like if you wanted to add a team to my list of teams that I would find every out of market game, James Harden with Jimmy Butler, and yeah, I'm all right with
and
that.
Pat Riley and
Pat,
Spo and those guys breathing down your neck and the expectation. That's just it. Like teams that have a good culture, San Antonio, Golden State, places like that. Sacramento's been building something. Memphis has been trying to build something, even though Jaws keeps getting in the way of that. But like, they're not going to have any part of that. A no nonsense coach like, a Tom Thibodeau, he's not going to have any of that. There's so many places where it's just an automatic no. And everywhere else, it takes you about 15 seconds to think about their roster composition or their goals or everything else to find it as a no as well. There are just no destinations for this former MVP as currently constructed. We said last year, and we said in Brooklyn, that those were going to have to be reclamation years where he reminded people how good he was, where he kept his nose clean, and he wasn't a distraction. And in each case, he did the exact opposite of that by the end of it. There's going to have to be some show me years on low contracts, and James Harden might be one of those guys who would rather go and be a star, play the Stephon Marbury role in China than in NBA basketball. This is where his career is heading, and it's sad.
Yeah, it's a little sad, but he's had multiple chances.
It's sad, but there's no pity involved. There is zero pity because,
no.
like you said, this is 110% self-inflicted. This is not a Daryl Morey problem.
And how about this, real quick? The three guys sort of that are connected together more recently as far as that big three. It's Kyrie, Durant, and James Harden. Think about the two bozos that we have, and then Kevin Durant, who's just sort of been, outside of having burner accounts, like he's been sort of like, there's nothing wrong with him, like as far as, like speaking out against his team or being just this malcontent somewhere. It's interesting that Kevin Durant got caught up with those two guys, and maybe there's a reason those three guys didn't last very long together as that big three. So.
Kevin Durant is prickly still. He's edgy, but I think he understands the game, and he understands that you don't win by airing all of the dirty laundry. Kevin Durant will say things in between the lines here and there, and he definitely is still in the player empowerment, movement and all that stuff, but he is a guy who has earned it, and he has a far better reputation because he's come in, he's done the work. He may not always be happy, but he's shown up and been a excellent player, and you don't win by letting your ego cash those checks the way that Kyrie Irving and James Harden have done, because eventually your talent does not benefit the long leash that you've been given to act like a jerk.
Yeah, you only get so much of that, and eventually your talent catches up to your your actual ego, and then you're going on the back end of it. And then you get no more benefit to the doubt when you don't have that type of stellar thing. All right, that's going to do it for the Jerry West episode here on this here podcast. Joel, welcome to a brand new season, and Jerry West, welcome to you to a brand new season as well.
Season 5 gets started, and we'll be back next week. We'll preview the Eastern Conference. We'll get the Western Conference after that, and all of our season previews, the awards and standings and all that is coming up before tip-off. So we are back in business on BBA. It's been fun.
It has been fun. Should we do it again?
We'll do it again.
All right, let's do it again.
I have a good
Goodbye,
feeling.
people.